Okay, so tomorrow you are teaching a lesson with David, and what do you think your objective for tomorrow will be?
Well, working together, I really want to focus on the comprehension portion of the lesson. So my objective during the comprehension portion is that there's actually two that go together. That he'll identify types of questions that relate to the text.
Okay.
So in the text, in my head, the author and me, and right there, think and search.
Okay.
Okay. And also that he'll use the prior knowledge in the text to answer some questions.
Okay.
So they actually are starting a little bit backwards with it. I'm introducing it, so it's a brand new thing that we're doing in the lesson. So I'm going to start by introducing QAR to him, which is the 4 types of questioning, the question, answer, response, or relationship. So I'll model how I generate questions while I read.
Okay.
I'm going to use the text that we've already finished, The Wizard in Menlo Park. We finished that today.
Oh, wow.
To model so that we're doing it with a familiar text.
Okay.
And then together I'll model, but we'll also work to sort them into the 4 types of questions.
Okay.
And then we'll work on answering some of the questions.
Okay.
I don't plan on answering all of them because I think that would make it to be too much. I just want to try like one of each kind.
Okay.
So that he understands how to answer them.
Right.
But I'm going to focus even more on the answering the following day. So I'm kind of just going to introduce that. The lesson will primarily be about generating the questions and identifying the type.
Okay. And, so you're introducing this, and why would you consider this to be an appropriate new strategy? Is he proficient in the inferential strategies that you were working on?
He actually did really well with inferring while thinking. Today's lesson went really well. He the most he had been struggling with was the in my head statements, and today we worked and created a definition for in my head statements, and that seemed to really solidify it for him.
Okay.
So now, I had him inferring naturally while he was reading, which is what good readers do. But in school and in a lot of situations, he'll be asked questions. So I want to then take what he's learned and throw it into the situations where he's being asked questions, or sometimes he might generate questions.
Okay.
And add that questioning part in.
Right.
It also relates back to the testing where when I asked him inferential questions, he had trouble. So they connect in that way.
Okay.
And then he's going to read a new article today. So at the end of the before reading, I'm going to introduce that. It's called Here's to You, an Amusing Look at Hearing People.
Okay.
Which is an article by a deaf person. He had, when we were reading about Thomas Edison and they said he'd become deaf, David mentioned, he became old really early. And I thought it was an interesting perspective of his that he thought of deaf as old. So I want to expose him to some deaf culture. And this article is written by a deaf person. It's his look on hearing people, his observations. So I think it'll be a good juxtaposition to David's thinking, and it'll lead to some good discussion.
Right.
So that'll be the article for the during reading part.
Okay.
And I'm going to preload that with, during the word work portion, which is the first part of the lesson, some of the vocabulary will be introduced in our word work. So he'll be a little bit familiar. And then he'll read it silently. And hopefully after we've practiced generating questions and then before reading, he'll generate some questions. And if he needs prompts, I'm thinking to use things like, what question would you ask a reader here? Or what would you like to know? And then at the end, we're going to code his questions for the 4 types.
Okay.
So hopefully he'll become familiar with and we might notice if he's making more of one kind than another.
Right. So based on what you know about him, what question do you predict he'll have the most trouble with identifying?
Identifying them? I think that on my own, because I think that he tends to rely heavily on the text. So he might try and look for things that aren't really there in the text. I think he also might have trouble asking those questions. those on my own questions.
And how will you know, how will he display that he's having trouble with those?
I kind of think if he is having trouble asking them, he's just going to avoid them.
Mm-hmm.
So I might see a lot of right there questions that he generates. I might see some think and search questions. But if he's having trouble with it, I'm guessing he's not going to ask them at all. And that'll tell me more about what I can do in future lessons, and I might try and guide him a little during the lesson.
Okay. So your plan tomorrow is to guide him more if he's having trouble. Are there any other techniques that you think you'll need to use?
I think he responds really well to open questions. So if I just say, well, what do you think belongs here? Or what would your teacher ask you? It doesn't guide him in a direction of like what kind of question to use, but it gets his wheels turning a little bit. So I think I'm going to try and use some of that open-ended prompting.
Okay.
And I think that's what I'll ask you to observe and record for me is
the data.
The data, yes. The data would be if you could record what I say when I prompt him.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure I'm asking enough, and I'll have to look at the types of questions afterward. We can look at it together. But I want to make sure I'm asking him the right kinds of questions that guide him into his own thinking. So you can record the questions and prompts that I give him.
Okay.
And then maybe if it leads him somewhere, you can put like an L next to it. Or if it doesn't lead him somewhere, maybe a D, something like that, where we know if it actually helped or not.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So it sounds like you have the sequence down, and you know the data, you know what you want him to do, and you know what you want me to do.
Yes, and you helped me because I realized I had really thought about him answering the questions, but my focus was that I wanted him to generate and sort them. So I think I have a better understanding of my objective now as well.
Okay, good.